Good morning, church. It's Drew here with our daily devotion for Monday, January 17th, 2021. We'll call this one Prophets Still at Work. Read Jeremiah chapter 1, verses 1 through 10. I've got a link for it in the text here if you want to just click through and read that. It's great 10 verses to read and think about as we begin this Monday. Our text from Jeremiah includes the calling of a reluctant Jeremiah, an important prophet in the life of God's people. Most of you can quote Jeremiah 29:11, but he certainly said a whole lot more than that. In verses 9 and 10, we read of God putting my words in your and Jeremiah's mouth, and we feel the weight of Jeremiah's difficult prophetic work yet to be done. It reminds me of another prophet. Today is Martin Luther King Day. It is an important day for our nation as we remember a man who worked tirelessly on behalf of an entire race of oppressed persons, most of whom were exceedingly poor, especially during his lifetime. I, like many other pastors and religious leaders, make it my habit to read King's letter from a Birmingham jail each Martin Luther King Day. King's letter is a treasure trove of biblical, solidly Christian thought about how to identify and resist evil, injustice, and oppression. This year, I am reminded of what prompted King's letter in the first place. While sitting in a Birmingham jail, King read an open letter to himself, published in a local newspaper after some direct action was taken there in Birmingham. It was signed by 6 Christian clergymen and a Jewish rabbi. Among the signatories were 2 highly respected Methodist bishops, 2 Episcopal bishops, a Baptist pastor, and the head of the Regional Presbyterian Synod. The title of their open letter was A Call for Unity. Essentially, they advocated for King's people to just calm down and work through the customary channels of negotiation. Further, they questioned the wisdom and purpose of outsiders coming to their city stirring up trouble that could be better handled by their own people. It was a well-written and gracious call for the maintaining of the status quo until such time as persons in power and persons then disempowered could figure out how to create a new status quo that looked more like the justice and righteousness of God. All agreed with King that things were not as God would have them to be. They just disagreed with his nonviolent direct action as the means to accomplish social change. They were advocating for King to just wait and things would get better. We all know how it goes when the people in power say wait to the people not in power and hope that things get better. King wrote an eloquent response from his jail cell, and I have a link to that whole 20-plus page letter. Each year, something fresh emerges for me from those pages. This year, I was drawn to King's explanation of how things transpired in Birmingham. He carefully laid out a years-long process which had been totally missed by the clergyman who penned A Call for Unity. He wrote, in any nonviolent direct action campaign, there are 4 basic steps. 1. Collection of the facts to determine whether injustices are alive. 2. Negotiation. 3. Self-purification. And 4. Nonviolent direct action. King wrote, we have gone through all these steps in Birmingham. This passage and the few pages which elaborate them further struck me as so powerful because of the careful process which accompanied the actions of King and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Nothing happened with them without careful thought, planning, hopeful negotiation, and self-work leading finally to some appropriate nonviolent direct action to raise consciousness, demonstrate actual injustice, and spark the needed conversations with those in positions of power. It strikes me that in our time, many persons desiring to fight perceived injustice too often skip the first 3 steps elaborated by King. Action, usually in the form of words, comes too often without the benefit of investigation, negotiation, and purification. How much deeper would our work for justice and righteousness be if we were more careful to follow such a plan, and to do the deep work of self-reflection and purification before jumping into the fray? We might just discover that angry outbursts and careless words do not make lasting change. It is the calm, deliberate, persistent voice of the one telling the truth at great personal cost, which ultimately points people to the righteousness of God made real in life-giving justice. That has always been the work of God's prophets. It is dangerous work. Comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable is always dangerous. How might God be calling you into this holy work? What injustices do you see and feel? Do you notice? The things that you notice probably have something to teach you about God's call on your life. Then the question comes, how will you live that call? How will you dig in to better understand? How will you discuss with others to have the conversations that need to happen? How will you do the internal work? And finally, perhaps, how will you take some nonviolent direct action of your own? You'll be pointing people to Jesus, who is the living embodiment of the righteousness of God, which seeks the well-being of all people all the time. We discover yet again, this is what it means to follow Jesus on purpose. We need each other for this work. So this morning I want to remind you to check out our Life Groups page if you haven't already, and consider facilitating a group or being part of our great Lenten Life Group experiment in 2021. It'll be well worth your time. I hope you have a wonderful Martin Luther King Day and take a few moments to reflect, to be present with God and each other, and to see what you can do to make this world a better place. I love you folks. Bye.